Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian McCollum, and I'm here today at Rock Island taking a look at an Australian contract Smith & Wesson No. 3 new model revolver with stock, holster, and the stock holster. So South Australia, of course, is now today one of the many states of Australia, but it was originally founded in 1836 on a rather different principle than most of the other Australian colonies. It was to be an entirely free colony. It was pre-planned, and the founders of South Australia had some legitimately really noble and good intentions for the construction of a new colony. And in some ways, they were a bit naive. For example, this colony was founded on December 28, 1836, and did not have a police force because this was a free colony. It was specifically not going to have any convict labor, unlike many of the other Australian colonies. And so they figured, everyone's going to be law-abiding. We won't have any trouble. We don't need a police force. Well, that lasted about 16 months. And they discovered that even if they were all law-abiding, not so law-abiding people showed up from other areas in Australia where there was, for example, forced convict labor. And in 1838, they formed a police force. In fact, this would be, according to them, and I haven't done like substantial background research into this to confirm it, but according to them, the South Australian Police is in fact the second oldest, like centrally organized police force in the world, behind only the London Metropolitan Police. Kind of interesting. When it was originally founded, it had 10 officers, or 20 officers, 10 on foot and 10 on horseback. Well, it would expand relatively quickly over the years. There was a lot of territory that these policemen had to cover. So some of it was urban in the capital city, but there was also a lot of rural ground. There was a lot of farming, there was ranching. And these officers would oftentimes be on horseback with, well away from any help or backup. And so what do you arm someone in that sort of role with? Well, in 1880, Smith & Wesson was exhibiting in the Melbourne Exhibition, and this is one of they were exhibiting, among other things, their new model No. 3 revolvers, which one of the options you could get was an attachable shoulder stock. And the South Australian Police saw that, and they liked it, and they ordered 250 of them. And these would remain in service, or at least in inventory in South Australia, until 1953. So let's take a closer look and consider what this revolver offers as a sort of universal weapon. The South Australian Police would purchase 250 of these with 7-inch barrels and shoulder stocks, and they also purchased 30 pistols with 6.5-inch barrels and no stocks at the same time. That was the initial order. The stockless pistols, of course, were more for urban officers, guys who weren't going to be riding around on horseback so much. But the guns are numbered on the bottom of the grip. They are not in a consecutive serial number range, but they are all in the 12,000s and low 13,000s. The shoulder stocks were numbered on the bottom tang. This one is mismatched, and it's in the 23,000 range. I'm not sure exactly what gun this would have originally gone to, but it's not matching to the revolver we have here. Notice the broad arrow proof mark there. All of the guns were ordered with a nickel finish, as you see here, as well as the hardware on the stocks, and that was done to give them significant corrosion resistance. These are guns that were going to be out in the bush and subject to presumably fairly rough conditions, and a nickel finish made them much more likely to survive that without getting corroded and rusted. These are, of course, break-action revolvers. There we go. These were all chambered for the .44 Russian cartridge, which of note here is a cartridge that has it's a black powder cartridge, so it has to have lubrication on the bullet, but the lubrication grooves on .44 Russian are located underneath the brass case, so inside the case, and they are thus protected. Earlier cartridges that have external lubrication are subject to dirt and grit attaching to the lubrication grease and causing problems when they're used. Not an issue with the .44 Russian. There is a little notch in the bottom of the grip and then a matching lug in the stock attachment, and so we fit that in there, and then up here there is a hole in the top of the grip frame, and this plug goes in it, and then I tighten this screw up, and that locks the stock nice and securely onto the back of the revolver grip. There we go. That allows you to get a nice solid grip on the gun still. The stock doesn't get in the way. This is a fairly stable attachment as pistol stocks go, and your support hand would come back around here. And having that stock allows you to get a third point of contact and shoot much more accurately. The 7-inch barrel here has a substantially long sight radius, and this could be a pretty darn accurate gun fired from a stable position with the shoulder stock attached. Now there is this potential question of, yeah, it's stable, but you saw that took me a decent amount of time to get the stock attached. And you might want to have the thing available at a moment's notice with the shoulder stock. Well, the holster, the specific holster that was made for these pistols, again, note the Australian broad arrow mark there. This holster is designed so that it can actually carry the gun with the shoulder stock attached. So we can put the gun in there, and then we have, I'm not going to force this because the holster is a little bit stiff, but as you can see here, there are two flaps, and they are intended to fit around the shoulder stock. So you can actually carry this with the stock attached, and this holster is not intended for a belt. This holster is attached to your horse saddle. Now, if you didn't want to do that, if you wanted to just keep the revolver in here by itself, you also had this second holster. Notice that it's got a similar set of attachments here. Again, this doesn't go on a belt. This attaches to your saddle, and the shoulder stock fits in there, and that allows you to carry the shoulder stock separately from the revolver in its holster. So for the officer out in the bush, he has access to a very competent, very capable, fast reloading 6-shot modern revolver. Should he need something for close, self-defense or rapid usage. But the shoulder stock can be attached to give something approaching rifle-type accuracy. Not quite as accurate as a true proper carbine, but something that is much easier to carry. You've got to carry everything else with you to stay, your food, your water, any other equipment you might need. And so weight is sort of at a premium for these guys, and it makes sense to have a relatively low-profile weapon system. I think this is a really interesting solution for the job of the South Australia police officer. By 1953, of course, the South Australian police had modernized substantially, and these old black powder revolvers were well and truly useless to them. So in that year, they went ahead and sold them all as surplus, and they actually sold them all to an arms company in California, and they were all shipped back to the US and then sold basically onto the commercial market here. So there aren't a whole lot of them, but they pretty much all ended up in the United States, which is, I'm sorry, Australians, but we get your cool revolvers now, I suppose. And so they show up from time to time. What's particularly cool about this one is that it has all of the accoutrements with it. It's neat to see the special stock holster and pistol holster that were used with these, as well as, of course, the gun and the stock itself. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, learned something cool about a place you may not have known about before, and I think this is a really interesting example of you can only have one gun and you don't know what you're going to need to do with it, so take your pick and see how it works out. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.